It's time to make our companies more competitive while we're fighting climate change.
Welcome to the Political Orphans. Our goal is simple. We want to show you that it's possible for a lefty and a righty to not only get along, but to be able to have a civil conversation when we disagree. Because never forget, common sense has no political affiliations. On today's show, we're speaking about the EU's proposed 90% carbon tax on their heavy industries and what it means for Canada. Our question of the day is simple. Considering the carbon tax cut the EU's proposing, what will Canada do? Will they follow suit, or will Mark Carney double down on his green agenda?
Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the European Union? Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the United Kingdom? Guess what one of the requirements will be to diversify trade to emerging Asia? Is to have a form of price on carbon.
Get your comments ready because the show starts now. The Financial Times reports that the EU is to exempt heavy industries from carbon tax on exports. This is something that is going absolutely viral right now because, you know, we're in Canada and our prime minister and the one before put so many policies in place based on a green agenda, based on climate change, based on carbon tax to try to curb our impact on climate. And even as recently as the last election, Mark Carney was saying that it is a must that we put a price on carbon. And I have the videos. I'll show the videos afterwards, but we must have a price on carbon because this is the only way that we can deal with the EU. It turns out that the EU themselves have come to the conclusion that their sector, especially when you talk about steel, cement, and aluminum, are suffering. They can't compete with the world's competitors. So the foreign competitors, they can't compete because guess what? Places like China, places like India,
they don't
places
give a
like
shit.
the US, nope.
They're not going to handcuff. They're not going to handcuff themselves, and that's exactly what these taxes do. They handcuff, like they're garbage. They hand, and this is separate. Even if you fully believe in the climate change narrative and all that, you should still be against these because they don't do anything. They don't actually. They're just about virtue signaling and woke.
It's a cash grab. It's a cash grab.
100%. Frankly, and we've talked about this a lot before. And this is why another reason why I'm skeptical of the narrative is if you were genuinely concerned about climate change and emissions, by far the most obvious solution to this is you'd be pushing nuclear so hard, nuclear, because that is the low hanging fruit in the drive to lower emissions. We have the technology to do it. We can do it safely. The fact that there was two major meltdowns in fucking the history, like, so what? You had Fukushima and you had obviously Chernobyl. The fact of the matter is, it's like every time a plane crashes, although that sucks, airline travel actually gets safer because we learn from it. We figure out the mistakes that cause, and then it gets better. It's the same thing that's going on here. So to say, oh, well, we had two meltdowns at Fukushima and Chernobyl, therefore nuclear is unsafe. Actually, it's safer because of those. We've learned from them. We have the technology to do it safe. And so when you're out there banging the drum on climate change, but you're silent on nuclear adoption at scale, I'm skeptical because that's the only real solution that I can see.
And, remember when we talked to Judith Curry, what she said was absolutely bang on. So we need to develop technology based on the terrain, based on the natural resources, based on what the country has to offer, because the way that the climate change has been put together, like the green agenda, is an attack on oil and gas. It's not even about reducing our impact, if you believe that we do have an impact on climate, but it's about reducing our oil and gas consumption. But it makes no sense for certain countries to do so because that's all they have. This is where technologies like nuclear technology, thermal technology that's being developed as we speak. But for countries like us, like Canada that has the third biggest reserve of oil and gas in the world. Why the hell would we build nuclear when we have the natural resources? We have the infrastructure almost in place to do so. We just need to develop it from coast to coast and would be able to be one of the main producers of oil and gas in the world, because let's not lie to each other. We are nowhere way close to ending our dependency on oil and gas.
No.
Should that be our goal 20, 30, 40 years ago, for 40 years from now? Sure. But right now, it makes zero sense. And then you look at a place like Quebec that has the most hydroelectricity basically in the world. Yep. So in Quebec, does oil and gas make as much sense? Not really, because electricity can be used through hydroelectricity, but you still need oil and gas to power your home, maybe to power your cars. In Alberta, they could supply the whole rest of Canada. You know, places where they don't have natural resources, build nuclear plants, build thermal plants. So this is what it's all about. And this is why I found this article so interesting, because finally the European Commission is saying that the European Commission will propose on Wednesday, which was yesterday, that sectors such as steel, cement, and aluminum should be exempt from paying for the carbon emission of their exports to level the playing field with foreign competitors. And that's according to the 2 EU officials involved in the talks. This, to me, is just simple common sense. The fact that we've dug a hole like that where this needs to be proposed and accepted makes zero sense to me, because simple common sense. What are your natural resources? What are you capable of producing locally? Use that as your power. Because most people don't know this, but you look at their alternate energy like wind. Do you know that it takes a shit amount of oil and gas in order to keep on running? And the shelf life is not even that long. Same thing with EV batteries. You look at your car. People are like, oh yeah, but that's so much better. Yeah, but do you know that most places that you use electricity has been powered by a technology that you don't consider green, like oil and gas, like nuclear. So, and not only that, but EV batteries have a shelf life of about 10 years. They say 10 to 20. And we don't even know how to recycle them. We literally need to put them in the ground and hope that one day we develop technology to recycle them. So
there's a lot of environmental destruction about mining lithium and cobalt and all those minerals. It's just like you said, it's common sense. It's just not like, it's nonsense policies. Even if you believe in the climate change narrative, you still should want policies that actually work. Right, that's just a bare minimum standard for any type of policy making all over the world. If it doesn't work, and it's idiotic to think that a carbon tax on industry is going to help if China and the United States are not doing it. Like, these are by far the two. What are they together? They're probably more than half the world's global emissions. So if they're not on board, and they're not. For Canada and the EU to be doing this shit, it's just performative nonsense. You're crippling your own economy. You're tying your own hands behind your back, just to virtue signal to some far left woke activists. And it's idiotic. It's bad leadership. It's bad policy. And kudos to the EU for rescinding a bad policy. Now let's hear Mark Carney do the same thing. It's funny because, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. It's just that I wanted to let me show this just because of exactly what you're talking about right now. It kind of makes sense before we go back to the article, because there was a couple more things I wanted to show. But this is basically just to put a nice picture, and I apologize for the naked dude that's right next to it. I don't choose the ads that are on there. But this is basically to show you who
that's your search history, is it?
We kind of do look alike, don't we?
He looks like your type.
This is my dream body right there, brother. Little bitch tits and stuff. But this just puts it into perspective, right? So China's producing literally 31% of the world's CO2.
Okay, and India is not doing carbon taxes either.
No,
No,
7.3. The US, depending on what you look, is between 10 to 14%. So that's pretty bang on. But you know the part I like the most? Do you see like the little tiny portion right here, like where it says Canada
Oh
here at
yeah,
the bottom?
that's us.
1.5%. So, you know, if you looked at the EU, the UK is 1%, Poland's 1%, Turkey's 1%, Russia's 5%, Italy's 1%, Germany's 2%. So that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, that's 6. That's 5. So between all of Europe with Russia, 9%. US, 13.5. Canada, 1.5. China, 31%. India, 7.3%. And the rest of the world combined outside of the sphere that you saw is 21.7%. So we produce 10 times more. We produce less than 10 times what the rest of the world produce, and we're literally what, the second biggest country on the planet.
It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
and look, man, like you get the picture I have of Carney in my mind is him like bursting through, like being like, yeah, we're gonna tackle climate change, right, guys?
Crickets.
Guys? Yeah, exactly. Fucking tumbleweed rolls by. And this is what we talked about yesterday. There does seem to be a vibe shift that climate change, clearly people still talk about it, but it does not seem to be the guiding factor, nor should it be, right? And Carney,
Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg.
yeah, if Greta Thunberg doesn't even give a shit about climate anymore, right? She read the room. She's like, oh man, nobody gives a shit about this. And in fact,
2 years ago.
we're joking
2 years ago.
But I guarantee you, she's actually probably a pretty good indicator for this stuff, because she would have pretty good inside knowledge on how much donation money is coming in, and she probably
people on the streets that she talks to all the time. But I was looking this morning because I made a joke exactly about what you said. 2 years ago, she started talking about Free Palestine back in October.
Yes, yeah,
2023 or September.
Yeah.
So even her.
She was like, okay, I've wrung as much, I've squeezed as much. Yeah, exactly, right? Squeeze as much fucking blood out of this stone as I'm going to get.
Yeah.
Time to move on to the next grift. And then, Palestine dropped into her lap. But
they needed a little white girl from Europe to.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, to solidarity. How dare you? How dare you? But
one of the best meme ever. That is such a great fucking meme right there. So I wanted to go back to just the article before we go a bit further, because there was, this is what's funny, is that they're finally starting to understand that the proposal comes amidst heating debate over the ability of the EU to meet its climate change targets against the backdrop of a global trade war and rapid shift of priorities towards defense and economic competitiveness. There's never been a shift. It's just that the US didn't go down that road. China does not care, and India doesn't care either.
Read that again. Highlight that part.
It's like, it's saying that it's saying
a rapid shift. Oh yes, as if I know what you're saying. There was no shift.
Drop. No, there hasn't. You tried to shift the narrative.
They tried to make a shift, and the shift they tried to make didn't happen. And now they're saying, "Oh, it was a big shift." No, there wasn't. There just was never the shift in the first place that you were expecting.
But this is a part right here that I find absolutely hilarious. So it says that measures such as the block carbon border tax were fantastic for decarbonization, but could be at the expense of our own companies, and that they face unfair competition on the global market. There's no unfair. You guys literally
you're the one who did it. You're the one who did it.
Yourself in the foot trying to be better than everybody else, and China and India and the US is like,
it's like a guy, a boxer goes into the ring, ties his own hands behind his back, and when he gets punched in the face, he's like, hey, that's not fair. Motherfucker, you're the one who did it to yourself. You're an idiot. Like, why would you add a tax on your own companies for no reason that doesn't actually do any benefit? Your companies that are competing on the international stage against international global companies that do not have a tax, just to feel good about yourself. Like, and then you wonder. It's the epitome of bad policy making, and in my mind, it is everything that's wrong with how far left ideology. It's sort of how the sausage gets made. You know what I mean? It's just, and we've talked about this before. The problem, one of the main problems with far left ideologies, like say communism or transgenderism and even this kind of stuff, is it just completely ignores everything we know about human nature. You know what I mean? It's like they create a world that they want to be true that is not, and then they make policy based on this imaginary world, and it's utterly wishful thinking, and that is the left in a nutshell. Just wishful thinking. If we pretend the world is this way, it will be that way. Meanwhile, they're going out and making policies for this imaginary world, while the rest of the world is over here being like, check out these fucking idiots, fucking taxing their own companies for no reason, handcuffing themselves on the global stage. And the EU, it was an idiotic policy to put in place. At least they've realized it now. Now let's have because like what and we're gonna play the clip. Yeah, okay. I'll wait to play the clip.
We spoke about what the EU's proposing, but do you guys remember this? This was during it was either I believe it was when he took over the Liberal leadership before the election. But do you remember? Oh, hold on, I got to remove this one. But remember, for my Canadian friends out there, our Canadian listeners, do you remember
One of the requirements is to diversify trade to the European Union. Guess what one of the requirements is to diversify trade to the United Kingdom? Guess what one of the requirements will be to diversify trade to emerging Asia? Is to have a form of price on carbon.
That clip, honestly, that might be like Carney Chernobyl. That might be the one thing that really starts to make people realize, okay, like, how much of this is just, this guy's just an empty suit. He just talks nonsense, right? He was sold as the adult in the room, right? That's what, especially after Trudeau, who just was this, the I don't know. I think that the idea most people have about Trudeau is just a kid, right? In over his head. And then Carney comes in, the adult in the room, big dad energy. And he, I think he is effective at conveying that when he talks. He gives that impression. But stuff like that just shows this guy is just an empty suit, man. Like, he just says shit. And it was idiotic at the time to think that fucking China expects or demands their trade partners to have a price on carbon. Like, that's just insulting the intelligence of the listeners. It was bad enough. Like, that was never even true of the EU. The EU, like, they had their own carbon tax, but they never demanded anyone else did. But to say that China did, like, come the fuck on, man. And now he looks really dumb because even the fucking EU is like, no, this is stupid.
And every time you listen,
popped up again.
I gotta clear my internet search before I start sharing my screen. But this is what's funny, right? Every single time you hear Mark Carney talk about carbon tax, climate change from now on, remember that. Always think about this. So in order to do business with the EU, we need to have a price on carbon. They're talking about removing their own carbon tax from 90% of their industries. Really? So we need to have a carbon tax. Awesome. Why is it that the EU has already signed deals with the US when Canada hasn't? Do you think they really give a fuck? You're going to tell me to deal with China?
Gives a fuck.
The 31% of CO2 in the world comes from China. You think they care about emission? They couldn't give two shits, but they want you to care. Because that means that you're literally shooting yourself in the foot and you can't compete with them. So they're happy. They want you to have a carbon tax because they're not going to put one in place.
Well, yeah, of course. Every like you want your competitors to hamstring themselves. The rest of the world probably couldn't believe their luck that the EU and Canada was stupid enough to fucking, what are these idiots doing? To hamstring their own companies with a senseless tax, a needless tax. And remember, Carney's big thing where he slid the carbon tax down to zero. That was only the consumer. We do still have a carbon tax on our industry. And if you don't think that's partly to blame for our stagnating economy for the last 10 years, then, you need to sort of open your eyes a little bit, because that is there's other factors involved. Specifically, I think the primary factor is the liberal policy of just fundamentally anti-development liberal policies. But that carbon tax thing, that absolutely it hurts our competitiveness on the global stage, and that in turn directly impacts our GDP.
So just because you're bringing up a good point right here, let me show this. I just found that as you were speaking here, but here's an article from taxpayer.com from 2024, so literally a year ago.
Yep.
And it says that the federal carbon tax currently costs 17 cents per liter of gasoline, 21 cents per liter of diesel, and 15 cents per cubic meter of natural gas. The carbon tax adds about $13 to the cost of filling up a minivan, about $20 to the cost of filling up a pickup truck, and about $200 to the cost of filling up a big rig truck with diesel. Farmers are charged the carbon tax for heating their barns and drying grains with natural gas and propane. The carbon tax will cost Canadian farmers $1 billion by 2030, according to the parliamentary budget officer. No matter how many times this government tries to lipstick on the carbon tax pig, the reality is clear, says Krim Sims, CTF Alberta director. This tax costs Canadian big time at the gas pump, on home heating bills, on the farm, and at the dinner table. Trudeau should make life more affordable and improve the Canadian economy by scrapping this carbon tax. So this was last year. So you're talking about more than $1 billion that it cost the farmers alone. Oh, I thought I had the screen shared, but hey, there you go. Just to show you guys that I'm just making shit up as I was going.
Yeah.
But you're talking about billions of dollars. Amen. You're talking about 17 cents per liter of gasoline, 21 cents per liter of diesel, and 15 cents per cubic meter of natural gas. $13 more to fill up a minivan, $20 to the cost of filling up a pickup truck, and about $200 to the cost of filling up a big rig with diesel, and more than $1 billion that it will cost by 2030 to the Canadian farmers. And this is not just the consumer part. You're talking about the industrial, the commercial part. So to tell us that it doesn't cost us anything is so much bullshit. But yet 2 days ago, here's what Mark Carney said. Just a little clip from his Canada speech that he made in Ottawa 2 days ago.
Time to make our companies more competitive while we're fighting climate change. It's time.
More competitive while we're
That
fighting
didn't-
climate change. That didn't age
2
well.
days old. 2 days. 2 days
I mean,
old.
look,
Whoops.
and this what he just said there is it sums up perfectly the problem with all this shit. Just be fucking honest. Like if you firmly believe that a carbon tax, an industrial carbon tax, is the right policy, then make that case. But you got to be honest with it. You got to say, yes, we know there will be trade-offs. It will hurt our competitiveness economically, but we believe it's necessary for this reason, blah, blah, blah. I'll disagree with you, but at least I can respect that you're being honest. But this bullshit of telling us, oh, this will actually make us more competitive, when that's just not true. Take away everything else. You could be the biggest climate change believer in the world. You could think there should be 100% carbon tax. You have to at least recognize the reality that it will make you less competitive on the global stage. Don't fucking lie to us, because that's the most grievous sin here. Bad policy is one thing, right? People choose bad policies. But if you lie about it, that's when it veers into I don't use the word evil much, especially if we're talking about politics, because I don't like to think that just because someone has bad policy, they're evil. But that's when you're getting into that territory. you know, is when you're lying about it. Guys, we're talking about the EU canceling their carbon tax and where that puts Mark Carney, who's obviously still a big proponent of the carbon tax. Throw your comments in the comments section. We will get to them once we're done our segment here, which will be pretty soon, I believe. Guys, and if you are listening, especially for the first time, remember to like and share the stream. That's one way to support us. If you think there's a need for a show like this, a place where common sense people from all over the political spectrum get together and have respectful debates, you can support the show for the low price of $2.99 per month. That will allow you to support the show, help build this community, support independent media, and yeah, you'll get a big thank you from us on the show as well. We'll highlight you and be like, "Ooh, we got a new member." So who doesn't want that? But guys,
by the way, if you're on X, guys, make sure to like, comment on X, reshare the stream. But you really want to go on the YouTube channel to join the conversation. That's right there at the bottom. So top of the screen, it says @the Poli Orphans. Join us, subscribe on YouTube, and have your voice heard.
Yeah. And guys, we're just getting lots of comments come in. Lots of them look forward to answering. So we'll get to those in a minute. Don't worry. But if you are new, the show is based on audience engagement. So throw whatever your comments you got in there. Disagree with us, agree with us. We like it all. As long as you're commenting, we're happy.
Just do your work. Bring your work with you.
Show the work. That's
Show
all it is.
your work.
All more stuff. Greetings from the queue. Greetings to you, sir.
Is that because I'm bald, like Q ball? Is that
or Quebec?
Is the Quebec, the Q ball from Quebec? That would be a great nickname.
Q ball from Quebec.
Q ball from Quebec. Damn.
Yes. Do we have, as Robin says, 35 watching, only 11 likes. Come on, guys. You got to get those likes up there. Remember to like the smash button, as we tend to say around here. Do we have any more clips on this story, or should we start to dig into the comments?
No, I really want. I just wanted to show the hypocrisy, and because it's funny that for months now and for years under Trudeau, we were sold the idea that we need to do something about climate change when Canada represents 1.5% of the world emission. And I guarantee you that if you take into consideration all of the forests that we have, we're zero. Like we're sub-zero emission. We probably recycle more CO2. And guess what? For the people that might not have assisted to their physics class or their history class or whatever class they taught that ecology classes, trees need CO2. And when you tend to give them more CO2, the trees grow bigger. Just saying. So in Canada, I wouldn't be surprised if we're sub-zero, like we have no emission whatsoever. But let's say we believe the 1.5%, that's 1.5%, and yet we have carbon tax on most of our services.
And I even want to separate during this sort of debate and this discussion the idea that like I don't even want to really get down into do you believe the climate change narrative or not, because even if you
don't need to,
you should still support policies that actually will do something to reduce emissions. And none of this does, right? All it does is cripple domestic industries, cripple our companies on the world stage. And let's look, an important part of GDP is how well your biggest global companies do on the global stage, right? There's a massive benefit to that, because remember, the US dollar is getting paid, is the global reserve currency. Any international services or goods that are bought and sold are going to be paid in US dollars. And so once those companies convert that back into Canadian, that's a big boost too. So, it really behooves our companies to be able to do well on the global stage if we want to boost that GDP, which has been anemic at 1% growth over 10 years. And no, that is not 1% per year, which would be pretty bad. It is 1% overall over 10 years. And you wonder why that might be the case. Well, the carbon tax and the Bill C-69 and just the mindset behind that is exactly why. It isn't just some coincidence that, as soon as Justin Trudeau took power in 2015, the economy started to stagnate. Literally, 5 minutes after he got elected, stagnated. It is a direct result of actual policies put in place. This is why leadership matters. This is why policy matters. So we're going to get the comments here in 1 second. This to me is a giant misstep by Carney. He needs to get away from this idea that climate change needs to be the guiding principle for our policy. I have no problem with factoring it in. I know there are people who say don't even consider it whatsoever. I don't have an issue if you want to factor it in, but if it is your guiding principle, that is a recipe for 1% growth over 10 years.
If you're gonna factor, if you believe that climate change is real, climate is always changing. So climate change technically is real, but if you believe that humans have an impact on climate, that means that you need to do, like we were saying at the beginning, and provide the best technology based on natural resources and not just a direct attack on oil and gas. Because this is what the climate change movement has become. Not building the best technology, because nuclear is technically a green technology.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. No, anybody who says it isn't is fucking retarded, man. It's
drop
just
mic, bro. Drop your mic, because this is the best answer.
Yeah, it's crazy. Look, if you are, and that's part of my skepticism. And like you said, that's right. It's all about anti-oil and gas. And if you don't want to even zoom out a bit, that's another major issue I have with so much of left-wing activism. It's not for anything. It never actually provides solutions. It's just anti-everything. Tear down capitalism. Okay, sure. What are you going to replace it with? Well, I don't know. Communism. Okay, you mean the thing that failed literally every single fucking time you've tried it? Oh, well, they haven't done it the real way. Okay, sure, pal. Sure, Jan. But so give me solutions, right? I don't care about problems. Don't just tear down shit. Give me solutions. And anybody who is a genuine climate activist, if they're not also pounding the drum on nuclear, I'm not going to believe that you actually give a shit about emissions, because that is by far the only real true solution that we have, technologically speaking, at the moment.